Kia ora koutou. My name is Sam Simpkins, and today I'm here to share our story, my story and my partner Shane's story of terminal diagnosis, living well with cancer, and then dying as an inpatient here at Hospice Waikato. So a little bit about us. So Shane was a really young, fit, happy, healthy dad of one and an amazing partner, working and volunteering as a rugby referee. And one day he started to have a couple of symptoms in regards to his vision, phoned me and said, something's not right with my eyes. And I said, just go book in with an optometrist, you'll be fine. But unfortunately he wasn't fine, and he actually ended up with a grand mal seizure that day in his workplace. We presented to hospital, had a brain scan, and they found a tumour the size of a golf ball in his occipital lobe. So we shifted very quickly into a space of uncertainty. I was also pregnant with our second daughter at that time. So through the transition of being joyful for the expectation of our new arrival of our daughter, we then had to deal with a potential diagnosis of something really dark and scary. We were a really young family. Our other daughter was 3 at that time, and our whole world just got turned upside down. So a couple of weeks later we had the diagnosis of GBM, so glioblastoma multiforme, and were told it was a terminal diagnosis. So there was treatment options to give Shane quality of life. However, we were told that he wouldn't be able to survive long term as well. It took us a lot to digest and accept as well, and actually we didn't accept that terminal diagnosis for quite some time. We were like, no, we're not going to be a number, we're an individual family. Shane was so young and fit, and he was like, no, I've got so much fight in me, I'm not going to accept that I'm going to die from GBM. So in actual fact, we put our heads in the sand. He had his brain surgeries, we did radiation all through Christmas, started chemotherapy and looked at complementary therapies as well. So we looked at the whole person. We thought, yes, we can take all the medical interventions, but we can also adjust some of our lifestyle as well. So we went all in. I continued to grow our beautiful daughter Maya, and then delivered her in April. Shane was really sick at that time, actually, just due to the side effects from his chemotherapy, but he was able to be there for the delivery, which was exciting. So that brought us a real positive year to our family dynamic. It gave Shane real strength as well to keep going, particularly through those really challenging treatments and working through all the side effects. So for a period of months, actually, life was pretty good. We had our beautiful newborn daughter. I continued to study towards becoming a nurse. Shane was at home working at, becoming a really intuitive person. He researched and started to meditate. Our other daughter, Sophia, she continued to thrive at kindy, and life seemed pretty good. We knew that he had brain cancer, but life was really settled. Then we had a routine brain scan and met with the specialist, and were told that he had a recurrence, same location, which is very typical of GBM. And we were told in that moment that we actually do need to consider a referral through to hospice. And we were really taken aback. We didn't want to accept any help from an organisation that we thought was only for where old people go to die. We didn't understand what hospice meant, and we just said no in that moment. We then went home and shed a lot of tears and thought, oh my goodness, like, how is this happening? We knew that he had another brain tumour, but Shane was actually thriving in that moment as well. He had very minimal symptoms. So we decided just to sit with the idea of having a referral to hospice. Maybe it was something that we could explore. And a few weeks later we went back to the specialist and said, actually, yes, could you please refer us through, and we'll have a discussion with whoever it is at hospice and kind of figure out what the nuts and bolts of hospice life is. So we had a home visit, given a lot of information, It was information overload, and again we thought, no, this is not for us. But they said because we'd been referred, they can just leave it there, and we can contact them at any time to kind of re-engage and see what that looks like for us. So again, a few weeks passed and we thought, no, actually, I think we need to do this. More for reading through the paperwork, I saw that there was support for myself and the girls as well, and preparing for what life may look like if things started to unravel for us as well. So we contacted Hospice and said, actually, sorry, we do want you to come into our world, and they came back and did another home visit. So we met with an amazing hospice nurse, and he went through the process with Shane about what hospice could do for us, and he gave us real hope. He said, you can thrive with hospice. We can provide you whatever support you need. We can walk alongside you. We can walk alongside myself and the girls, but we're guided by you, so we're not going to force anything upon you. And I love that they gave us that, I guess, autonomy to make our own choices, and not to feel like we had to do what they told us to do. And that was really refreshing, but also really comforting, because I was like, okay, cool, we've got a team that are there for us with our best interests. So I guess that was the start of our journey with hospice walking alongside us. It opened many doors for Shane as well. He was able to access counselling services to process through a terminal diagnosis. Our girls were able to come here to Rainbow Place and have play therapy sessions. We didn't even know that was what was needed for our family as well. It's amazing that you kind of feel like you're surviving or thriving through your traumatic diagnosis, but it's not until you start to unpack what may be going on for your family members that you realise, actually, we do need to have these support people in our world. The girls loved to come here to Rainbow Place. Maya was a little baby, so it wasn't so much for her, but for Sophia particularly, she really found this space a safe place to come into. She had a lot of fun with her play therapist, and she was able to express herself to someone that wasn't mum and dad as well. She didn't want to cause us any distress. She didn't want to make us feel sad. And so it was lovely to know that we were meeting her emotional needs as well through a really challenging time.
How old was Sophia at this time?
So Sophia was 3 when Shane was diagnosed, and she was 5 when he passed away. So 3, 4 and 5, and yeah, it was amazing because obviously through those years she was developing as a young person as well. So her emotional intelligence was developing, her understanding of what life meant, the permanence of death as well evolved. And as she went through all of those developmental stages, we were able to kind of wrap around and make sure that she was having more intensive sessions with the play therapist as well.
Do you think children have a greater capacity than adults to accept these sort of things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they're so black and white as well. And they say things that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that. So for example, you often hear about people talking about their loved one passing away. Well, for Sophia, it was dad died. So really permanent. The language was very purposeful, and it was really confronting to hear her use dad died instead of dad passing. Dad passing sounded much softer and a little less harsh. However, when I think about the permanence of death, dad died actually is true, and it allows you to really accept that there is permanence in death. So in fact, the girls, they helped me to not, I think they helped me to not soften things. They encouraged me to really address grief head on, instead of saying, oh no, dad's passed away, it's going to be okay. Well, actually, no, dad is dead, and maybe we won't be okay in this moment. We will be okay in the future, but it's okay to not be okay as well.
That's very interesting, because one of the things that I've observed talking to people about death is we do tend to soften it. We do tend to pretend it is something other than what it is with our language.
So yeah, the kids are so black and white. They will tell you as it is. Yeah, and they'll share all of their emotions unfiltered, which I love, right? They don't have those inhibitions. They don't have those concerns about protecting others or fitting into societal boxes. So whatever they're feeling in that moment, they're feeling, and they feel it hard. And it's beautiful to watch. It's confronting to watch. But if we learn from them and join in that process, it can be amazingly cathartic as well, right? Let it all out. Cry like no one's watching, because that's what children do. And as an adult, you think, oh my God, like, what am I doing? I'm like a mess right now. But that's our own personal perception of what we should be doing in that moment. Yeah.
Shane, tell us about his journey.
He was awesome. So like I said, he was really young, fit, healthy, had led an amazing life. We travelled the world together. So we'd lived a really full life. He had this amazing ability to take challenges head on, embrace them, and really make the most out of all situations. So testament to his character, when he was told he had GBM, he was like, oh no, like, you know, I know the figures, I've looked it up, but I'm not going to be one of those. So throughout his journey, he was really defiant in the fact that he didn't want to just be a number. He didn't want to accept that people with GBM often die within that first year. For him, he wanted to show everyone that he had strength, that he had courage, and that, well, his end goal was that he was going to be the exception to the rule and survive. So through all of his surgeries, he ended up having 5 brain surgeries. His recovery was always quite quick. He would always be very positive and optimistic, big smile on his face, even when he was in a lot of pain and really struggling. He brought a lot of joy to all the staff that were caring for him as well, because he had a great sense of humour. But definitely when he got to a place of realising that he wasn't going to survive, he was able to shift and move into a space of acceptance as well. And that was really hard for me to watch, because I wasn't ready to accept that he was going to die. And to see him transitioning into I know who I am, I know what I believe in, I know that I'm going to be okay and that you're going to be okay with the girls. And to hear him saying those words when I wasn't ready yet to accept death was really hard. But also I'm so grateful that he was in a place where he was okay. And to see someone that you love and care for so passionately, ready and accepting of the fact that they are going to pass away, challenged me, but also encouraged me to know that I would get to that place as well when I was ready. Yeah.
So how did it go when you moved into hospice care?
So that actually happened really suddenly. Are you talking about the inpatient unit? Yeah. So what had happened? Shane actually, after his 5th brain surgery, he wasn't able to come home. So he spent November, December up at the hospital. They just couldn't get on top of his pain and symptom management. So he stayed for quite some weeks up at the hospital. Christmas Day he came home, which was really important for our family, for the girls to have Dad home for Christmas Day. So he came home on day leave. And then about a week later they said, you know, it's actually time for you to go home. They didn't use the words, it's time for you to go home to die. So we were actually blissfully unaware of the context of why he was being sent home. So a week after he'd been at home, we realised that things were kind of taking a turn. He wasn't able to take his medications, he wasn't able to keep things down, and he was just losing his ability to kind of function at home. So we contacted Hospice, and they told us that there was a space in the inpatient unit when we needed it. And so we were transferred here. The hospice nurse made that all happen very seamlessly. Unfortunately, when we made the decision for Shane to come into the inpatient unit, in that transition period of moving from our home to hospice, he actually lost consciousness as well. And I think that was probably Shane knowing that he he knew that he was going to be in the right place. He didn't want to pass away or die at home. He didn't want to die in hospital. He knew that he wanted to come here. And it was really nice to know that we were able to kind of make that happen. So when I arrived at the inpatient unit, I found Shane unresponsive, and that was really confronting. I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually happening. And I wasn't prepared for that in that moment. I walked in with a coffee and a muffin for him, which I don't even know what I was thinking. So I stopped off to get a coffee and thinking, this is going to be fine. We can come into the inpatient unit, get his symptoms under control, and then pop home. But I walked in and realised, no, actually, this is the end for Shane. So the hospice nurse came in and asked me if I needed anything, and I just said, I'm not sure what I need, and they left me, and a doctor came in and explained the process of what was kind of happening, and explained that Shane's body was going to shut down, and it would take whatever time it would take, but we could be here, and they would support the whole family to be here as much or as little as we wanted. So yeah, really confronting, because I wasn't prepared for that in that moment. I didn't know that was what was going to happen in that day when we woke up in the morning. But I knew that Shane wanted us to be with him. I knew that his wishes were to be surrounded by his family, his friends, to have music, to make sure that everyone was given the time to be with Shane as well. So hospice were amazing. They were like, this is your space, you just do whatever you need. So we put up beautiful pictures of our family. We had his favourite music playing in the background.
What was his favourite music?
Lady Six at that moment. So actually when he passed away, this amazing New Zealand artist called Lady Six, we had her playing in the background, and he loved Kiwi music, he loved drum and bass. So not everyone's cup of tea, but we had it playing the whole time. So his friends read him some autobiographies of some rugby greats, because he loved rugby. His mum and dad were here. The girls were here. We had the bed set up side by side so that our girls could be lying beside dad. And yeah, it was amazing. It was the most beautiful experience. So hard, because I was like, I couldn't quite come to terms with the fact that this was us in that moment, that it was really happening, because we had such big aspirations of beating it. And then in that moment of Shane moving from our home in Dinsdale to here in Hillcrest, him losing consciousness and me not being aware that was what was going to happen next, took me a couple of days to really kind of get my head around the idea of, this is it, he is going to die, and then to watch his body slowly shut down. We took the drinks trolley every afternoon. All of us and all of our family and friends, we all sat around, and we shared amazing stories. We knew that Shane could still hear. I knew from my nursing training that that sense doesn't go, and so we involved him in all of our conversations. Although he was unresponsive, we knew that he could hear. So our friends and family took the time to be able to sit and have a beer with him. We got the mouth swabs and dipped it in his favourite beer and gave him a mouth swab full of beer. But holy smokes, like the ability to share in that space, to actually have some real moments of joy in an incredibly sad and confronting time, was so beneficial. The ability to share that space with others as well. Our room was full of people, but it didn't feel like we needed to keep quiet or that we were stepping on anyone's toes. It was our space in that moment. And I'm just so grateful that we had that time with Shane. Actively dying can be really confronting. I'd never actually watched someone actively die. But the nursing team and the doctors, they allowed for him to die at peace. They were able to manage his symptoms beautifully so that he was never in pain. He didn't make any horrible noises. The girls didn't have to watch their dad die in a confronting way. He actually passed away so peacefully because of the care that the inpatient unit provided for him. And I'm so grateful, because our lasting week with Shane doesn't have any awful memories for me. You know, I knew that he was at peace. I knew that he was comfortable. I knew that he was surrounded by loved ones, and I knew that the girls could see that Dad was okay in that moment. And I think that not enough people know that that's what hospice does or can do for you as well, to give you that gift of seeing your loved one pass away peacefully. I'm just so grateful that that's our lasting memories that we have of Shane, is that he was okay and he was at peace.
And you were with Shane when he died?
Yeah. So we had all of his family and friends there on his last day, and they had the nursing team had come in, and they'd always kind of kept us up to date with what was happening in the process of Shane dying as well. And his breathing had slowed, and they'd said to us, you know, like at some moment in the very near future he will pass away. So we just I lay beside him and listened to his breathing, and I noticed that his breathing was at times stopping, and I think, oh my goodness, this is the moment he's died. And then he'd breathe again, and I thought, oh, this is a bit unfair, like I'm not too sure how I feel about this whole situation. But yeah, he took his final breath and shed a tear. He shed a tear, which for me, I was like, he's at peace. It was amazing. It was amazing to know that he was okay. Yeah. It was a beautiful moment. And I never knew that death could be beautiful. I'd always imagined that death would be a really horrible, confronting, yucky experience, but it was amazing. And I was there, and I knew that Shane wasn't alone in that moment. It was beautiful. Yeah.
When it was all over, funeral, how were you feeling?
So after he died, I actually spent the night with him here at Hospice with his body. And again, I didn't know in that moment that was something that I would do. But because it had been such a beautiful experience, I was no longer afraid of death. I understood that, yes, he had died and we were left with his body. But I think I knew that we were going to be okay, because I could see that Shane was okay in that moment of him dying, him shedding that tear, and just seeing the relief on his body. I knew that we were going to be okay. He was gone, but we were still going to be okay. So I spent the night with his body, and then his good friend stayed with us. We had dinner with Shane's body. I spent the night with his body, and then in the morning, the undertakers came and we helped to pop him into the vehicle. So Shane had told us if he was to die that we weren't ever allowed to leave him alone. He was like, "Don't leave me alone, no matter what." So I honoured that. We obviously had to have him taken by the undertaker and get him all dressed nicely in a suit. But he wanted to be home as soon as we could. So we did the process as quick as we could, and we brought him home to his mum and dad, Sally and Barry's, and we had him in an open casket up until the day of his celebration of life, is what we called it. So again, that just continued that whole process of allowing everyone to really come to terms with the fact that he was gone. When you look at a dead body in a coffin, you cannot do anything but accept that person is gone. And we've had so many friends and family thank us for allowing them to have that space to be able to say goodbye to Shane, to be able to see his body and to really sit with what that made them feel. The girls spent days decorating his coffin, and we again had all of his music playing. And so we had a celebration of life at the Arboretum just on the way out to Raglan. And it was a beautiful day. We had, of course, we had rain, we had sun, we had wind, and I think that was Shane saying one last goodbye to us all. um, and so then we got him cremated. So the days after that, he died just before his birthday, which was we had the funeral the day before his birthday. So we actually turned it into more of a celebration. We wanted to do that particularly for the girls as well. Let's celebrate Dad. So we had an amazing celebration of life for him, and then the following day we celebrated his birthday. So we had cake and we shared stories about Dad. We sang him happy birthday. So it was actually a time of real joy as well. Every year to this day we still do a cake for Shane, we still sing him happy birthday, and it's all about celebrating the amazing life that he had. And I think when you shift away from just absorbing yourself in the sadness of someone dying and actually change that into celebrating their life, because he had an amazing life, he had a really rich, fulfilled life, he was an amazing person, we had an amazing life together, the girls had an amazing dad. There's so many amazing things to talk about, right? And if you speak from a place of joy when you're remembering someone, it evokes joyful memories. And yes, it's sad that they're not here in this moment to share with in those memories. But I was very purposeful about making it, let's celebrate Dad, let's celebrate Shane, let's honour him, speak his name, talk and share the memories that we have for him. Look at all the photos, look at all the videos, listen to his voice, because that's what he would have wanted us to do. Yeah.
Low moments for you?
Yeah. Big low moments. So in those initial weeks, I think it was, you are just, you're surviving because you have to. I had the girls as well. So I'm so grateful, as challenging as it was to have to care for two little ones in that moment of grief. So grateful that I had them, because I still had to get up. Each day I had to get them breakfast, so it gave me purpose as well. Hospice approached me a couple of weeks after Shayna died and offered me a spot on the grief course, and I thought, oh God, I don't think I need this. And a lovely lady that I'd been working with for some counselling, she said, I think you do need this. So I turned up, I said, okay, cool, that's all good, let's do this. Turned up to my first day at a grief course, having no idea what it looked like, and I connected instantly with the group because we were all in it together. We were all grieving someone that meant a lot to us. And so sharing our grief journey with others who understood exactly where you were coming from was so helpful. The grief course was so confronting because it forced us to say words or to express our feelings in that moment that were so confronting. The feeling of relief that someone had died because you knew that they were no longer in pain, and the guilt that you feel from saying those words. And guilt's such a negative, empty feeling, and it's really, really hard to work through. I knew that I was going to be okay the moment that I sat down and looked around the room and could see that it wasn't just me on this journey, that I knew I had other people of all different ages. I was the youngest, but there was definitely young people with me in the group, and there was some older people in the group. And it just makes you think, okay, actually death is going to impact on people at all different times in their life. But grief is individual, and the process is individual to you. No matter how you get through it, if you do get to the end of your grieving process, in whatever time frame that takes, it allows you to then thrive. And I was really motivated to make sure that we thrived, and I didn't want it to define us or to break us as a family unit. I had my girls, and I knew that I needed to continue to live life beyond our life with Shane as well. So yeah, the grief course was exhausting. I was working as a nurse, so I had to remember to take my nursing hat off and be present there in that moment as Sam. I used to go back to work in the afternoon after spending the mornings on the grief course, and I was just emotionally exhausted, because it makes you feel all the feels, right? And you can't run away from them because you're in that space and that's what you're there for. So, many tears were shed, many laughs were shared. And in fact, after the grief course program was completed, we continued to meet up for a few months after that as well, just to touch base to make sure that we were, as a group, doing okay, because you actually form a really strong connection with these people. They get you, they understand, they give you that space and security to share those really big feelings.
Let's talk about, so the things that you were feeling. You spoke about guilt, which is understandable. Before the interview, we did talk about the fact that people who die suddenly is a different process to people who die slowly. You're in a different space. What other feelings was there anger?
There definitely was anger, but I felt I was quite good at nipping that in the bud, because I didn't want to become a victim, or I didn't want to sit in that victim mentality of why me, why us, why has this happened, because it wasn't helpful to me at all. I think when I reflect back on a terminal diagnosis, is it gives you time. When you are diagnosed or told that you have a terminal diagnosis, it gives you time to work through that grief. And I think anger was the first thing that we felt at diagnosis. And so in reflection, I know that Shane and I talked through that anger together and with friends. And because of that, at the time of death and the months after Shane's death, I didn't really need to revisit that, because I'd already processed that in that moment. I was always really motivated to not let this define me. I knew that it was going to shape me to be a better person, but I knew that if I held on to that anger, that would cause me to not be me. I wanted to show the girls as well that you can actually draw on strength that you don't even know you've had, that inner resilience. I've had people say to me, how did you continue your nursing studies through Shane having or living with cancer, and complete your nursing studies, become a registered nurse, start working as a nurse all through this journey, and then Shane died and you continued to be a nurse? And I don't know the answer. I don't know how I did it. All I know is that I drew on this inner resilience that I had no idea that I had. Because if you're motivated to do something, and if you're motivated to live your life to the best of your ability, no matter what challenges you come up against, you can do that. So big emotions, anger, I really do feel like we acknowledge those big feelings together.
Because was Shane angry as well?
Oh, so angry, so angry. We sat in the ED department after he had his initial scan, when they were trying to explore what brought on that grand mal seizure. And we sat in the little cubicle in the ED department, curtains closed, and the doctor had just come in and said, we've found a tumour on your brain, the size of a golf ball, we need to do a brain surgery. And in that moment, he was like, this is not possible. And there was instant anger, because we knew that it's not normal to have something growing in your brain. And Shane's mum's also a nurse as well, and I think he knew from his mum's face that this was not good. Shane was so insightful, though, with his emotions. He also knew that anger was not beneficial, right? And we loved to talk, and I think that that's what helped us process that anger, getting to a place of not acceptance that it was going to be a terminal diagnosis, but acceptance that this was our journey, allowed us to kind of focus on the other things, so that we weren't caught up in that emotion of anger. We still had to live our life. We still had to, we had a baby, expecting a baby in that moment, and we still had Sophia. So anger, it was there, but it wasn't the big feeling. I think for me in my journey, guilt was the biggest thing that I felt. It was so challenging to process. It made me feel physically sick, the guilt that I held on to at feeling relieved that Shane had died. So the relief at the moment when Shane took his last breath, seeing him shed that tear, and just knowing like I don't have to be here. I don't have to be here caring for someone. I don't have to deal with hospitals anymore. I don't have to deal with oncologists. I don't have to deal with everything that comes along with a cancer diagnosis, and I can just go on and live my life. I was so relieved. And then when I sat in what I was thinking, the guilt just was crippling. It was horrific. And I didn't know what to do in that moment of guilt. It really floored me actually, because guilt's not a feeling that I had really had to sit with in such an intense space, and I didn't understand how to work through those feelings, and that's why the grief course was so important. I was able to say those words. I was able to be honest and upfront with others about what I was feeling, and then be able to accept that that was okay to feel relief, and I didn't need to feel guilty. It was very valid that I felt that relief as Shane died. Happiness. I also felt happiness, right? I got to share my life with an amazing man, and I felt like I had won the lottery in my family. I had an amazing relationship. We had 2 beautiful daughters. We had a home. The joy that we had was amazing, and that was also part of my grief journey, to share the joy that we'd shared together. And I think that that's probably what I went back to a lot, was knowing that we had something really amazing. And I was so grateful that I had that, even though it was a relatively short period of time in my lifetime. I know that people sometimes never get to experience the love that we had for each other and the joy that we had in life. And so I was just grateful that I had that moment. And I think when you look at things with that lens, you know that you're going to be okay. Life is okay. Yeah.
What about the girls? How do they think about their dad now?
They think their dad's amazing. Sophia was 5 when Shane died. So she's got some real tangible memories with her dad. She remembers obviously what he looked like, what he sounded like. Shane was so brave. He created some videos for the girls. So he has, we have a video message from Shane for both the girls. So on their birthdays, we play Shane's message to them, which is amazing. So we get to see Shane looking quite healthy, hear his voice, watch his mannerisms, and he's speaking directly to the girls, which is so special. Sophia has lots of photos, lots of milestones she reached with her dad by her side. So she knows that her dad was amazing. She watched him go through all of his surgeries, all of his treatments, and she knew that he was fighting and fought really hard, and I think that she really admires him for that. She's now almost 14. And, the hard part's been seeing Sophia evolve and grow into a young teen. As she has grown and developed her emotional intelligence, it's been hard for her to revisit those moments and for her to accept the fact that Dad did die when she was so young. And along the way, we've had to put in those supports so that she would be okay. It's the cruel part, I think, of death, is that as an adult we can process grief and get to a point where we can thrive. But for kids, as they grow and develop, they have to almost revisit those moments, and that saddens me to see them, at different stages of their life have to kind of go back into that raw emotion. But they have to. It's so important they do revisit that so that they continue to thrive, and it doesn't stop them from being their best version of themselves. Maya was so little. She was 15 months when Shane died, and she's 10 now. She feels really ripped off and robbed of time with her dad. So she knows that he was amazing and that he loved her because we've told her. She obviously has fewer memories, less photos, but we do have some videos, and she loves them. To hear her dad's voice, to see her dad interacting with her when she was a little baby and toddler. So for Maya, I think it's quite different. She's had to sit with those big feelings. Anger's been a big one for her. And as she's grown and developed in her emotional intelligence as well, it's been really awesome to watch her have the courage to work through what those emotions are. It's been really challenging as a mum to see her feeling these things that I wish she didn't have to feel. But again, I've said to the girls, this is our world. We can't change it. We can't put our heads in the sand. We've got to move forward with our life. And I think being really particular about the wording, moving forward, not moving on, because Shane continues with us. He's just not here. But we honour his memory. He's still a part of our everyday conversations. So allowing the girls to know that we're moving forward with our life, just like their dad would have wanted. We're not forgetting Dad. He's always a part of our world. I think it's been quite comforting for them. And they're all tools that we were taught here working alongside Rainbow Place, and then the grief course and the individual counselling as well. Yeah.
Let's talk what ifs just for a second, because what ifs are a bit pointless. But in this context, what if you had decided not to come to hospice?
So if we hadn't have come to hospice, what would have happened? Shane would have died at home, and it would have been unsightly. Yeah. I wouldn't have, even though I was a nurse, I wouldn't have been able to give him such a dignified death. We talk about in healthcare always remembering that even though a family member may be a healthcare professional, in that moment they're not. They're there as the family member. And if we hadn't have accepted the support of hospice, I potentially would have had to taken on the role of caring for him as a healthcare professional. And I don't think that would have been fair to me. We wouldn't have had the support for the girls. We wouldn't have had that space for all of our friends and family to come and share those last days with Shane. And I most definitely wouldn't be okay. Hands down. If I hadn't have done that grief course, I don't know where I would have been, because, those big feelings of guilt and sadness, if I hadn't have acknowledged those in those first few months, because it was so crippling, I fear that I wouldn't have been able to continue to be a great mum to the girls and to continue to work as a nurse. I really don't know where I'd be today if I didn't have access to the grief course, because it was so pivotal in my journey. It was like this amazing cloud had lifted from me at the end of the grief course, and I knew I was going to be okay. And I got to have that, not so many months after Shane had died. And if I don't know what that timeline would have looked like. I don't know if it would have been years before I got to a place where I was okay. I just know that the grief course was extremely pivotal, and I wish everyone had the opportunity or has the opportunity to be able to sit in a safe place and work alongside professionals to unpack what they need to unpack so they can thrive in life post a really sad occasion. Yeah.
Several years on, how is Sam now?
I'm awesome. I'm so proud of me. I am so proud of the growth. So I was young. I was young. I was early 30s, newly registered nurse, a mum of 2 young daughters. And I thought, right, I'm going to continue to thrive as a person. I was really motivated to continue to live life and embrace life. So here we are, 8 or 9 years later, and life's amazing. I have an amazing partner. We've got a beautiful blended family of 4 children. I'm still a registered nurse, and I'm now teaching into our Bachelor of Nursing and Master of Nursing students here at the University of Waikato. So I'm in a really privileged position to still. I actually live around the corner from Hospice now, ironically, as well. I'm thriving and I'm so happy. I know that Shane would be so proud of me. He'd be so proud of the girls. He'd be proud of his mum and dad. Our life hasn't stopped and we've continued to find joy. We've continued to have purpose. And we've continued to thrive as a family. Yeah.
I'd like to finish on one question. When your own time comes, when your own death, when you're facing your own death, what has this taught you? How will you approach that time?
That's a big question, hey? I think I would look upon how Shane faced a terminal diagnosis. I think the important part that he taught me was the moment of acceptance. I would hope that I would be able to get to that place because I saw the peace that gave him. Being able to accept our mortality and being okay with our own belief systems, I think, is really important. I would hope that I would be able to be given the opportunity to die with dignity. Seeing what I saw in Shane's death, that you can die with dignity and it can be really beautiful, I would want that for my friends and family and loved ones, because I knew that gave us a gift. It wasn't traumatic, it wasn't scary, it was beautiful, and I would hope that I'd really hope that I would be able to pass like that.